Hello, buddy. It's Bendominator, and welcome back to another episode of the Bendominator podcast. Today, we're on episode 29 of the podcast. I hope everyone's having a wonderful day today. And today, we're going to be comparing both Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, talking about all the seasons. And to help me do that, I have Adrawls, a part of the Brimroyal dev team, joining us today.
Hello, I am here.
Welcome.
That's
Welcome
my
back to the
best time.
podcast. You have the most
Yeah,
podcast episodes
I do.
as guests. You have
Out of
3
everyone.
whole episodes.
Wow, hand it off to me. I'd
That's
like
crazy.
That's insane.
You're the king of the podcast.
I've been in more episodes than probably been Dominator? Question
Dude,
mark.
I've been in 29 episodes at this point. It's kind of a lot.
Yeah.
Because we are on episode 29, which is kind of crazy. Like, next week is going to be episode 30, and next
And
week is
then
going to be such a weird podcast because Fortnite's going to be down for the
yeah.
next... It's going to be weird, dude. It's going to be crazy. It'll literally be like the night before Chapter 3 comes out.
The night before Chapter 3.
The night before Chapter 3, all in the house. But yeah, we're going to be talking about both Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. Because, of course, Chapter 2 is ending here, and we kind of want to do a bit of a retrospective on every season, talk about it, and kind of just see which one we like more.
Yeah.
And kind of go in depth.
This whole just started with a conversation. It was like, hey, Ben, what chapter you like more? He said Chapter 1, of course. I'm like, okay, I say Chapter 2. Let's make a video. And then we did, but then it turned into a podcast.
I was like, I don't have any ideas for podcasts, because like what else would I've talked about this week if we didn't do this? Like, there's been
the Nike collab that's coming.
Yeah, the Nike collab and whatever other collabs we've gotten, like Nick Fury. Like, not a lot has happened this week, which I didn't expect it to, of course. So we're here and we're hyping ourselves up for Chapter 3. We're getting ready, and yeah, we're just gonna start from the top all the way from Chapter 1 Season 1, which I don't think either of us actually played.
Yeah, I have not played the first 2 seasons ever.
We didn't play it, but I surprisingly I knew quite about it, or quite a bit about it.
So, I know a lot about this stuff, but yeah.
But it's hard to give like our opinions on it fully.
Yeah, but let's just think about the first season overall. Like, what's something stands out? They brought a new map, first of all.
There's a new they brought a map. So the thing about Season 1 is that it was originally kind of side mode because, of course, Fortnite was like save the world at that point. That was all the development, or like most of the development time was going into that. So a lot of like pre-Season 1 stuff was like early access, and then Season 1 came out to the public. It was like the first actual public build of the game. So they released like the season shop with the Renegade Raider. They had their first ever cosmetics come to the item shop, which were like the Skull and Ghoul Trooper. And yeah, it was just kind of the humble beginnings of it. And it was, I would say, I never played it, but it seems like this would be like a fun game, but it wouldn't be anything like super notable until later seasons, you know?
Also, another thing I'd like to mention, just a background about this is previously there. So if you played Save the World, you would have known there's a game mode where the storm will shrink to like it goes very small, and you have to kill zombies in that time before the storm shrinks completely. And previously, Fortnite wanted to make that into a game mode in Save the World, where you had to compete with another team, but they just felt like with Save the World stuff, it didn't really work. But then they just created this big map once they found out about Battle Royales. So they just created this big map, storm shrinks, and a bunch of people fight to death, you know?
Yeah. And they had like a bunch of Q&A. Like, this was probably the peak. Like, people always talk about communication with Epic. Just because the community was so small, this was probably like the best it was. Because they were able to like have surveys. Of course, they had tests, and they had like aiming tests being like, how should we affect accuracy, and how should we do bloom? What weapons should we add? What items should we think about including? So this was a lot of like a test season. Even before it came out, it was mostly just like testing the game. This was the first official release, so that they could kind of introduce Season 2 later and kind of make it. Season 2 is kind of what pushed the game to be what it is today, including pretty much everything after that kind of just kept elevating it. So again, we can't really say much because we didn't play it, but it seems like a decent time. Like, it doesn't seem like an awful season. It seems like a pretty fun one. It just seems like in today's context, it would be very boring compared to what we have now.
But surprisingly, because the battle royale genre was very new, they were able to get 2 million players at season 1, not even season 2. Before its hype, season 1 had 2 million players.
Yeah,
Like,
that's crazy. Like this game
it is
popped
insane.
off early,
Yeah.
and it just got even crazier and crazier. So, and even like there's a bunch of weird little things like, um, I don't think Tomato Town and Salty Springs were originally named,
They
and then
weren't,
they
yeah,
added the names later. Just stuff
because they
like
were
that.
popular.
Yeah,
Like, these
exactly.
because these places got popular, just like, let's
It's
add a
just
name, I guess.
Tomato Town makes sense to not be named, but it would have been weird. Like Salty Springs not being a named location, like that's a pretty big. Like it's not huge, but it's a pretty decently sized area. So be
Yeah.
interesting if that never got a name. But of course,
Yeah.
there was no like not a lot of the chapters 2 stuff we're familiar with now. Of course, cosmetics were barely even a thing. Like we got Gold Trooper,
Yeah.
Skull Trooper, Renegade Raider, Aerial
Oh,
Assault
wait.
Trooper,
I
stuff
was
like
I was
that.
gonna say, remember this, but like we've never played, so you've probably only heard of this. You could like for the backblings for skins, they were like tied to the skin, so you couldn't like
Oh
take them
yeah,
off
yeah.
and mix and match them. So there's like two, like if you bought the season 2 battle pass, one of the skins or like the two of the night skins have the exact same back bling. So some people just have the
You
like
just
the
have two
exact
things.
same back bling in their locker. That's funny.
Yeah, I think it's like slightly different, or like they flipped like the colors or something, or it might just be
I think
exactly the same. I don't
I'm
remember.
pretty sure they're both just
Yeah,
exactly the
which
same.
is really funny.
Yeah.
I remember like because I didn't really have any cosmetics in season 2 when I started playing, which I guess is a good time to move on to season 2. Um, so I never really had any cosmetics playing, so I didn't know that. I only started getting cosmetics in season 3 when I actually like, started playing the game. Like I bought Raven and that was about it. So I kind of was used to the idea of back blings. And then I remember watching a few videos like around season 3, like season 4 time about like season 2, and I was like, "Oh wow, wait. Back blings weren't a thing back then?" Like it was just kind of
Yeah.
weird for me to
It's yeah.
find out. Uh,
Uh
but yeah, we can move on to season 2 now,
yeah,
which
another thing
is a pretty big
I'd like to
deal.
mention about season 2 is they changed how the map like looked at its art style around like chapter like just in general chapter 1 they constantly changed the lighting, the map, and they
Hmm.
still do that with the map in chapter 2, but it was like they just changed the lighting like so much in chapter 1, like but yeah,
Yeah. I think
which
what
is why
happened is they had the big map update, which we'll talk
yeah,
about, and they were just like, let's improve the graphics because there's a lot more
yeah,
texture on this map. There's a lot more detail.
yeah.
You can kind of see a lot of the detail, and also I think they probably changed up some of the lighting and just textures in general.
Yeah, because also I always find this weird to me that the entire map is like so like it's just like a like the it's above the water because you're not meant to swim in the
Yeah,
water.
there's no
It's just like
shoreline.
yeah, it's just like a big mountain like or it's not a big mountain, but like
Yeah,
everything's just super elevated. Like
yeah.
everything's at a steep cliff.
I think that's mostly just because that's how Save the World maps were designed.
Yeah,
Because you couldn't swim in the water, so if you fall off the side of the map, you just die.
yeah.
Which definitely
You know our
felt
shark.
pretty outdated. The more
Yeah,
we like now that we have chapter 2, that feels like a weird thing.
yeah. But also, do you know there's sharks in those waters? They're really sharks. You know, that's
For
real game.
real? No way.
Yeah, you could ride them. You just had to craft a, you just had to craft a fishing rod.
Yeah, dude,
They say
for sure.
season 3 introduced it.
Yeah.
Yeah, season 3
All the way
chapter
back in season
chapter
2,
2.
definitely. But yeah, so season 2 introduced a bunch of brand new POIs, of course a bunch of really iconic ones like Tilted Towers, we got Snobby Shores, Haunted Hills Junction, all that cool stuff, Shifty Shafts. So it was
Dude,
kind of a big update. I think Anarchy Acres
yeah,
also no, both Anarchy and Fatal though from the
yeah,
start. But a lot of stuff in terms of POIs and just like the battle pass for the very first time, which was only 70 tiers, I believe, but it was still pretty interesting. Like it's really where they started to kind of get like the cosmetics side of stuff in the game with the battle pass, which was like a brand new idea at the time.
yeah. It's like insane how many BRs and just any game now just copies the idea of BR or not BRs, but battle or I can't even think
Yeah,
battle passes.
yeah.
Like
It just
it's
makes money. So
it
people
makes money.
replicate it.
Yeah, and like the earlier battle pass system, which was just a like a seasonal shop. theoretically could have made them more money, but at the same time, less people would have bought those skins because it's just much easier for people to spend $10 to then progressively unlock more and more items as they go
Hmm.
on than just paying a lot of money to get a few skins.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
like I'm not gonna do that. Even if like I buy a battle pass, I get a few skins. Maybe I don't like some, and maybe I like some. I just do it because yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, also, I think, yeah, yeah. So season 2 was actually the first season I ever played, but I didn't really play it that much, and the only time I did was like the few weeks that the Christmas update was available, because it's kind of when I learned about the game. It was like free, and I actually played it on Xbox, which is interesting because I don't think I've ever played the game on Xbox since.
yeah,
So I wasn't really hooked on it until season 3. But
yeah.
season 2, like looking back, it definitely seems like a good season. It seems like a very good improvement, like a big step for the game. Still doesn't seem overall that exciting though. At least
Well,
like
yeah,
compared to what we have now, of course.
yeah. Compared like, but that back then, like the only BR was like PUBG, and then like some other like very
Yeah.
small BRs. So then having Fortnite, which was a free to play game, like that was big because
Yeah, and they updated it
also
they added a bunch of new items pretty consistently,
yeah,
which is
also
pretty good.
free to play was like the entire model for Fortnite, even before like they wanted Save the World before they were gonna make VR free. They wanted Save the World to be even free. They were like they wanted that free to play grind.
Yeah.
They were on that stuff before it was even a thing back in like 2012, which is when Save the
Yeah,
World was
they
being
wanted to
developed.
yeah.
Which is kind of insane, like how they just paved a market and they saw it in 2012 that free to play probably was the thing for the future.
Yeah, a lot of games go free.
And
Even like Halo Infinite right now is free to play, which is
yeah, which is
something I
like
didn't expect. Of course, the campaign you got to pay for, but
yeah, but like the multiplayer, which
lots of
is yeah,
multiplayer stuff. Which I feel like it's weird that Call of Duty hasn't gone free to play yet, other than I guess they made Warzone free.
Warzone. But like
But
yeah, but even then, like yeah, I don't know. Call of Duty is just like they're making the exact same game
yeah,
now,
it's
just
just
without the
crazy that they're
extra.
still charging that much for it, and people are still
Yeah,
buying it. It's like
and same with the Battlefield.
you'd
Like that
think going
Battlefield
free to play
literally.
with all these cosmetics, like they have Battle Pass, they have cosmetics. I feel like they could still make a lot of money, even free to play.
Yeah. Also, Battlefield, that was like the most insane thing. Like before the game even came out, they were making money because because they just know like no one got to play the game, and once they got like if you paid like $100 to get it for the early access time, like a week before the game came out, you could see how bad some of the stuff was. And then you had to
Yeah.
pay $100 just to get that,
Oh
and
my
just to
god.
realize that wow, this game isn't as good as I thought. Kind of
Yeah.
sad, but
But
yeah.
yeah, moving on, going getting back on track to Fortnite.
Yeah, Fortnite.
That's pretty much
Fortnite.
season 2. Season 3, like the first few seasons kind of are like I feel like seasons didn't really feel like starting like feel what they are today until like season 4. Like
Yeah,
this
definitely.
is
But
there's definitely very humble beginnings for the game. So it's like weird to count it, but I guess it works cuz like chapter 2 only has 8 seasons.
yeah,
So it's like the first 2 seasons of chapter 1 kind of weren't a lot, but like they were still like not like discounting the seasons. They just weren't what we expect nowadays when it comes to a new season launch. And I feel like a big example of that is also season 3. Had a lot of innovations, of course, introduced back blings, tier 100, battle pass, like all 100 tiers included now. And they introduced lucky landing on the map. That was like it, other than like, of course, the updates that they would do throughout the season, adding weapons, adding items, which is something we don't really see anymore. Like they don't really add weapons and stuff that often. They've started to recently, but we'll get into that a lot more when we get into chapter 2 and even some of the later seasons in chapter 1. But overall, season 3 again is it's not one there's not like a whole lot to talk about here with this one either. Not really a lot of a theme, not really a lot of too interesting things. So it's just really weird, you know? It's like the first 3 seasons of the game. Like I don't know. It's just cuz it was new. It was new and it was fresh and they were kind of just building up the game and it wasn't until like season 4 when they actually started doing like having like big themes and having like huge map changes at the start of every season, starting to tell a storyline. It seemed like season 4 was like the most hype season up to that point because it really showed that the game was going somewhere, which was really, really cool. And of course, like season 4 had a bunch of advancements as well that we'll get onto later. But for season 3, it's just, again, just improving what we had in the map already, you know? So, of course, adding Lucky Landing, adding... there might have been like a few other random buildings that they added. Of course, they changed the lighting again for the map. Made it look a bit more vibrant. Just a lot of little things. And then, of course, they would support it with updates. And Season 3 is the first season I actually kind of played quite a bit. I had a lot of fun in Season 3. I know that they added like a lot of game modes too. Like we had, I don't know if this was a thing before, but high explosives and stuff. I remember having a lot of fun with that. Solid gold. I think my main drop spot in Season 3 was definitely like the prison, which is a really nice spot. And that kind of stuff. Also, by the way, if you're wondering, Adrawls' internet did crash, so hopefully he'll be back soon. But as for now, we're soloing it again, so we'll just keep on going with this until hopefully he comes back soon. But yeah, I think the main spot I dropped, like, me and my friends would always go prison. We really like that location. It's just a lot of really cool POIs on this map. Honestly, just already just comparing to Chapter 2, I feel like, I don't know, a lot more of these POIs are a lot more interesting to me. Like, Snobby Shores is cool. You had, like, this cool dynamic where you could, like, fight over the walls. And there's just a lot of really big buildings. There's some boring ones, like, Pleasant Park was awesome, but again, like, just more neighborhood stuff, like Salty Springs. But still, they were great. And I'd argue they were much better in this chapter than they are in Chapter 2. Same with Retail Row. Especially Retail Row. It just has much better placement on the Chapter 1 map. Lonely Lodge is a place I always forget about, but it was a pretty cool POI. And then you have Wailing Woods wasn't really my favorite. You had both of the farms, which were pretty cool. I definitely liked, which farm? I liked Fatal better. And then you had Flush Factory, which was kind of another forgotten POI that not a lot of people went to. But it was still cool. Lucky Landing being added in Season 3 was a neat spot. I like that. I don't remember if it was added at the start or if it was like an update later on, but there's just like a small house there and they added it. Though it was kind of out of the way. Like Lucky Landing's another one that I never really went to. Like for the Chapter 2 map, I feel like there's so many POIs that I would go to. Like I pretty much go to every single POI on Chapter 2 pretty decently regularly. Even unnamed areas. Like there's not really any main named POI on the Chapter 2 map that I haven't gone to in a while, or that I've, like, forgot about. Even, like, some of the more forgettable ones, like Steamy Stacks and stuff. In Chapter 1, there was a lot of POIs that there's so many to the point where I didn't really land at a lot of them regularly. And I kind of had my mains. So it's like, I didn't really go Greasy Grove that much, if I'm being honest. I didn't really go to, like, heck, I didn't go to Lonely Lodge. I didn't really go to Moisty Mire outside of, like, the prison. I didn't go to Lucky Landing that much. I can't say that about, like, any POI on Chapter 2 map, which might just be me, but I feel like I go to all of them pretty regularly. Especially because the map's been the same for so long. So, yeah, that's kind of how that is. But yeah, Greasy Grove was definitely one that I kind of wish I went to more. I just didn't really land there that much. I don't know why. It's just like Greasy Grove is not really in my memory too much. It's just not a place that I really went. But it's very similar to Holly Hedges, I guess. So similar to that. It's got a pretty similar layout, but I think it was more interesting. It had like the whole burger building and everything, the Der Burger. So yeah, I wanted to wait to move on to the next season before like Adrawls got back. But I don't know if he's coming back anytime soon, so we'll move on to Season 4. So let's go ahead and move on to Season 4. Now, Season 4 is the first season that I feel like felt like, you know, a brand new, like a season that we'd expect nowadays. We got a bunch of big map changes, like a lot of areas were affected. You got a lot of craters. We had the big storyline reveal of there being a meteor heading onto the map. And it's crazy how this small little meteor started such a big chain of events. They really went from like small events to like super big events in chapter 1. They kind of built it up pretty fluidly, even if it does get kind of crazy later on. But of course, unfortunately, we lost Dusty Depot and we got Dusty Divot, which was like the first major like loss of a POI. We hadn't really lost any POIs before this. They've mainly been adding them. So we got a POI replaced, and I think Dusty Divot was a lot of fun at the start of the game. I remember, or at the start of Season 4, because I remember going there a lot. And I would like get the hop rocks, and I would just be like, if you had a shotgun, if you had a pump, or like even attack, just a shotgun in general, and you went in there with hop rocks, dude, you would destroy like everyone there, and it would be so fun, so satisfying. This was before people really were that good at the game. So even me being not as good as I am, I was able to really do a lot of stuff here, which was really, really fun. Now it is sad, like OG Factories was a great spot, Dusty Depot not so much. I feel like I wasn't a huge fan of Dusty Depot, so Dusty Divot really didn't like bother me that it came into the game. But I did like the factories, so that was a bit of a shame. But yeah, Dusty Divot coming into the game, which is really, really cool. Definitely a very unique POI, and it's one that stuck around for a while. It's something that became very iconic, but it also is like, it's like right in the center of the map. It takes up a lot of space. So it's just like surprising. Like it's weird that it's weird that it lasted so long. I would have thought that they would like covered it back up. But I don't know, maybe that's just my chapter 2 brain thinking. Because I just had like a giant hole in the middle of the map. Of course they had like trees grow around it in Season 5. But it was still pretty interesting to have this here. Like, it was pretty crazy. So yeah, Season 4 was cool. Of course, brand new Battle Pass. First Battle Pass I personally got. So I think that was pretty cool. And yeah, it was just good. I thought it was really fun. And definitely one of the seasons I like more in Chapter 1. Of course, I played Chapter 3, or Season 3. And it was good, but it's not like something super memorable. Of course, they didn't really have much of a theme. Like, they had the astronaut theme, but they didn't really do much with it. So, it was mainly just for the battle pass. But now this season actually had like a theme. Like, you had a superhero theme. It like tied in with the battle pass. There were like loading screens that would show you what was happening when the storyline was actually easy to follow. It was cool, man. It was a cool season. Like, it was hype. And they even had like a secret skin to keep you playing. They had the visitor. And they had the first ever live event, which was also really cool. So, yeah, overall, just good season. I liked it a lot. I think it was really cool. And definitely one of my favorites in Chapter 1 for sure. I think it was definitely a good one. So next up is Season 5, which this one was, I think this was a great season, honestly. But I know it was a bit decisive because this is the season that introduced the SMG meta. And people were not a huge fan of that. So, yeah, people weren't a huge fan of SMG meta, but this season also introduced a lot of great things. And I think what it did to the map was amazing. Though removing prison was a bit sad. We have a lot of cool new areas now. So they kept the gust track, that was cool, but they upgraded it, which made it a really cool spot, which was probably my most landed non-name POI, other than, I guess, the soccer building by Tilted Towers was probably my most landed spot in general, honestly. Paradise Palms was awesome, honestly. Lots of cool little areas. Like, well, Paradise Palms was the only named spot in the desert. There's a lot of other cool areas, like the junkyards, there's the Pueblo buildings, and of course the gust track. A lot of cool stuff there. And then there was just some also other cool spots, like Lazy Links was awesome. I love Lazy Links, even though it was kind of small. A lot of people landed there. It was still a lot of fun, and it was really unique, I miss, like, these unique areas. Like, it was a whole golf course. You got all this golf terrain around it, and it was just cool, And looking back on it, like, when it happened, I feel like you would go to Lazy Links and you'd be like, yeah, it doesn't feel that different. It doesn't feel that crazy. But nowadays on Chapter 2, like, every POI seems so similar to each other and, like, kind of bland. when you look back, you're like, oh wow, a soccer or like not a soccer field, but a golf course POI. That's a cool idea. Like it makes the stuff feel a lot more unique. It's like some of these POIs are really cool, like the Viking thing on top of the mountain. Not even a named POI. I feel like that could have been named if they wanted to. But there's an entire Viking village on top of a mountain. Like that was cool. That was really cool. They just had like random stuff, you know? But it made sense with the story, you know, because it had the whole worlds collide theme. It just fit, you know? Everything works. And all these little different distinct areas make the map feel a lot more different. You know, you got a giant crater, you got a golf course, you got a vacation area in the desert, you got a full-on racetrack, you know? It's just all these little cool areas. Viking, just the whole map just felt really good this season. And I'd argue this is the best version of the Chapter 1 map is the Season 5 map. For sure. It just felt so unique, you know? There's, of course, you still got your kind of more boring POIs, but back then, even then, it was still, like, even in Season 2, Shifty Shafts, like a mining POI, like, it's so cool. Like, Snobby Shores being, like, a rich area where, like, rich homes. I feel like Chapter 2 just hasn't had, other than Season 1 of Chapter 2, ever since then, they haven't really had that many interesting areas. It's just been like a lot of neighborhoods, a city, you know, power, like, a few POIs are cool, but they've been here for so long that they don't feel unique anymore. A whole junkyard POI, like a graveyard POI, like even back in Season 2, they were just adding cool areas that weren't just parks and, you know, residential areas. It's just really cool. I feel like Chapter 3 definitely needs some of that. It'll make it a lot better. Also, apologies that Adrawls is still not returned. His internet is still crashed, so hopefully comes back later. Or else I'm just gonna have to do the rest of this without him, which kind of sucks, but I don't really have much of a choice. So anyway, I guess we'll move on to Season 6. I mean, we could talk about the Battle Pass for Season 5, which is really good as well. I think, because, like, we had Drift, which is awesome. I still really like Drift. Ragnarok, which is amazing. Like, both amazing progressive skins. That's, like, the two best progressive skins, in my opinion. And it's a shame they don't really do progressives anymore. So, that's a bit unfortunate. And then, just also, a lot of good cosmetics. Like, the SMG spam is the main thing that kind of made the season not as great, but I still liked it regardless, you know? I still enjoyed myself regardless. And this is definitely a really good season in my opinion. I liked it a lot. It's a shame Person had to go, but the map felt a lot more unique. Lots of cool POIs, and these are the type of seasons I want to see for Chapter 3, you know? Season 5, possibly, I think Season 5 is my favorite season of Chapter 1. I think it is. Let's move on to Season 6. Season 6 was pretty interesting. It didn't change the map as much as I would have liked, but it still kept the game interesting with lots of cool, like, unique mechanics. This is where the map started to feel, I mean, it didn't change it that much, but you had, like, these runes around it. So you had the Kevin stuff. Kevin Floating Island, which was really cool. Definitely a very unique POI. And they changed Loot Lake a lot throughout the season, which I thought was awesome. Like, Leaky Lake by the end of it was, like, so cool. I love Leaky Lake. Overall, just a cool map. Cool Halloween event. The zombies were a bit annoying sometimes, but I don't think it was, like, the worst thing in the world. Especially compared to what we've had in Chapter 2 with Henchmen and other AI. Also, I didn't mention Season 5 throughout the middle of it added Tomato Temple instead of Tomato Town. That was such a good upgrade. Tomato Temple, one of my favorite spots. Again, a temple POI. Like, just cool ideas. I feel like Season 5 was, like, the best for that. Because it had the worlds collide. They kind of could just do anything. Just add random POIs. And they would make POI changes, like, mid-seasons, you know? Just overall, the map change is so good. So good. Like, it's no wonder why people beg for more for Chapter 2. Because Chapter 1 just did it so well. Like, they spoiled us with it in Chapter 1. And they made so many unique areas. So, it's just... to see Chapter 2 not really do the same. At least not really for every season. It's just... it's disappointing. But looking back on Chapter 1, it's like, wow, yeah. A lot of these POIs are really cool. For sure. And then next up is Season 7. Snow. ice on the map. This season was the first, like, one of the first seasons where I kind of wasn't into the game as much, but the launch of it was like, this is probably the most hype launch of a season because just a huge amount of snow. They added on to the terrain that they already had, so the map was larger in general. So that was really cool. The Viking place fit in perfectly with the snow. A lot of the POIs just fit in, Tilted being half in snow. It was just so cool. Just a lot of cool areas, you know. It sucked that Greasy Grove got frozen over. Like, they had room to keep it, too. Which, it sucks that they kind of just didn't. The thing about the snow biome, though, that I always argue, because people, like, I'll be talking to people and they'll say that the snow biome is, like, the greatest map change, which I can definitely see that. I really like how it looks, but I kind of had the unpopular opinion of being like, yeah, the snow biome's great, but I don't really like any of the POIs they added. I didn't really land any of them. None of the new things, like Polar Peak, I didn't think was that great. You know, the plain area, I forget the name. Just a lot of places, I just didn't really like them, you know? And they didn't really add much around the map that wasn't in the snow biome. So overall, I kind of just kept going the places. Like, whenever I went to the snow biome, it was either late game or because I was going to, like, Tilted or the soccer field or the Viking area or Snobby, you know? And the fact that, you know, the Durburger's gone, it just kind of, it felt weird not having the Durburger there. Because you still got Tomato Temple. It'd been cool if they made, like, a cool Durburger thing, but they just didn't, you know? Which I guess kind of shows the fact that Tomato has just more popular. So they did more with him and then kind of just scrapped Durburger. Which sucks, because Durburger was like, you know, it's like OG icon of Fortnite, even before BR. So that's kind of a shame. But overall, Season 7 was cool. Battle Pass was alright. It wasn't like my favorite, but it was still pretty cool. Just lots of cool stuff during the game. Winter event was awesome. It was a really fun time for the game, but I feel like it's the last time that I, like, had a lot of fun during a Chapter 1 season. Because the next few seasons I wasn't the biggest fan of. Though, they weren't really that bad, especially compared to some of the Chapter 2 seasons. Which, again, we'll talk about later. But, yeah. Also, I think Adrawls is just officially out for the rest of the episode. Which sucks. I'm just gonna pass, like, I'm still recording. So... Sorry. Alright. Hopefully Adrawls can come back, but that kind of sucks if he can't. His internet just completely went out at, like, the worst time. But yeah, so Season 7 was really good. I really liked it a lot. Of course, by this time we had Leaky Lake. I feel like, yeah, like, even if I didn't like these POIs, still unique, like a castle, you know, like an alpine, like, not like alpine, but like a snow research center with planes. Also, planes is another thing. Planes were not as bad as people say they are, I don't think. Like, I could see how you can find them annoying. I personally didn't, but that's just me. You know, I think planes were fun. Of course, I liked the nerfed ones in Chapter 2 better, but they were still a lot of fun, in my opinion. They controlled very uniquely. But again, yeah, really cool. Snow biome was awesome. I just didn't land there a lot because I didn't really like many of the POIs. And in terms of what it replaced, like, it replaced... I mean, again, like, it replaced Greasy and stuff. So it wasn't a huge loss in terms of POIs we lost other than Greasy. So it's not like it took away from the map, you know, other than Greasy. But Greasy wasn't a huge loss. Though I liked it. I just didn't go there much. Because I kind of went salty and stuff instead. Retail. But yeah, that's Season 7. Overall, I liked it a lot, but kind of like the last really good season of Chapter 1, I feel. Season 8, this season, I know a lot of people like this season. This is the first season where I kind of stopped playing the game, and I haven't really taken a break from the game as long as I have since this season. Like, this is the only season of the game that caused me to actually just not play Fortnite. Which is a shame, because it seemed like it was a lot of fun. It's just, I did not vibe with it, you know? I didn't vibe with it much. The block was great. But man, I just did not appreciate the new map changes. This is where the map just start kind of feeling a bit cluttered, which wouldn't be an issue if I enjoyed more of the map, you know? Which I could see, like, for people who like all these POIs, I'm happy for them because I kind of wish I felt the same. But since I didn't, since I was a person who didn't really like it, like the jungle, the whole jungle, I didn't like anything here. Sunny Steps was alright, but like, it was so annoying to get around the volcano. I just didn't like the pirate POIs. It just didn't feel great, you know? It felt really jarring. I just wasn't a fan of it. And that's mainly because it kind of like, Weeping Woods, I'm fine with being gone. But they got rid of Tomato Temple, which is like my main drop spot. They got rid of Lazy Links. And they got rid of, well, I guess Season 7 already got rid of Risky Reels. But still. I would have much rather they got rid of like the whole Lonely Lodge area. And like had the volcano closer there. In fact, even if retail got removed, it wouldn't have been as big a deal for me. But no, I feel like this is a complete downgrade. Though I will admit there wasn't much on the map like near Weeping, other than, well, there was like Risky or Wailing, I guess. So yeah, like this area definitely could have used a bit more, but I don't think they should have replaced as much as they did. Because like the snow and desert were usually like, yeah, desert got rid of prison. Snow got rid of Greasy, but this got rid of like a bunch of stuff that I liked, you know? So it just kind of sucked. And Tomato Temple was still there technically, but it just wasn't the same at all. It was much down. It was so downgraded to the point where it wasn't. And it's like, that's two. Now it's like, you don't have the Durburger, and you don't have the Tomato Head on the map. You don't have good POIs for either of them. And that just sucks. So, that's terrible. It's just, you know, I don't know. I didn't like the map changes too much. If I liked the POIs more, it would have been better for me, but I just didn't. Again, I didn't like these POIs. I didn't even like the biome itself this time around either. It's a cool concept, but again, just didn't love it. Also, just didn't like a lot of the stuff they added that season. The Flint Knock was cool, but the cannons were kind of annoying, and the just all around, like the ballers were cool, but I don't know. It was a bit too much for me, I feel like. It's just, I don't know. It was cool, and I could see why people like it, and I feel like I would have had a lot of fun if I kept playing and just, like, got over the map, because by this point in the map, there was two large sections of places that I didn't really land anymore. So I wasn't a big fan of that. So, yeah, I don't know. I think I would have liked it more. I don't hate it, but this is definitely a negative for me for Chapter 1, the first big negative. Season 9 though, I don't I don't have any mercy for this season. I just downright, this is probably one of my least favorite seasons in the entire game, both Chapter 2 and Chapter 1 included. It's just, I didn't really enjoy much of it. Neo Tilted was a complete downgrade of Tilted Towers for me. The fact that they even got rid of Tilted at all, just, man, it just kind of sucked. And then Retail Row, I don't mind them getting rid of Retail Row, but the replacement was not great. And it's just, yeah, it's just, I like the slipstreams, the fact that you can like go all around the map, though people would kind of leave fights and just kind of go in the slipstream. So I feel like having it go around the entire map was not a great idea. I think they did it better this chapter in Season 8, with them just being in little areas. But yeah, it's just, I don't know, this season wasn't great. I didn't like the weapon pool either. They changed so much about it, though it introduced some really cool stuff like Chug Splash, which I definitely appreciate. Overall, just not great in my opinion, honestly. And like the map changes just they felt really boring. And again, just downgraded the map even more. I feel like the map ever since Season 7, like each thing just downgraded it and made it worse. But that's just me. I don't know. So that was a bit of negative. Again, kind of a negative time for me in Chapter 1. And then we have Season X, which was Season X was fine, in my opinion. Season X was alright. Because by this time I kinda got over the map changes. I was like, okay. Neo Tilted not that great. They ended up changing it anyway. They changed a lot of this, like a lot of stuff back. They had like the rift zones. I didn't really want to go any of them because I had like weird side effects. So yeah, I feel like the only spot I landed this entire season was factories, OG factories, which I had a lot of fun going. But yeah, and of course mechs were also a big issue that I didn't like. But luckily, I kind of started playing the season once they were removed, so I didn't really have to deal with them for the majority of my playtime during this season. And the end event was really cool. It's just, man, this map was kind of a mess at this point. It just really wasn't that great. And it doesn't help that this season just, its launch didn't really do much in terms of map changes either. But we still got like all the rift zones, which is cool. Very, very interesting. And I can even just look at like, yeah, much later on. It's just crazy how much the map changed at this point. But I feel like a lot of these weren't great. But again, at least they still had like cool unique POIs, like a future city, they like a Wild West town. They had Gotham City, which was kind of cool. Still not as good as Tilted, but hey. It's just crazy that by the end of the chapter, so many like I feel like the end would have been a lot more substantial if we actually had like a lot of the iconic things of chapter 1. Because by this point, by the time the end came around, the map wasn't really recognizable anymore. It just wasn't. I feel like it would have hit a lot harder if we still kept like some of those great things. But at the same time, that then like I want map changes to where it's like, I don't know. I think if a lot of these POIs I just liked more. I just feel like it got to the point like we had Durburger. Well, no, because even then it was a lot of taco place. It's like we didn't have Tomato Head, we didn't have Durburger, we didn't have Tilted Towers, like some of the most iconic stuff. Which is weird because we haven't had them for so long because Chapter 2 didn't really have them either. Well, we have Durburger and Tomato Head now, but yeah, it's just weird. I don't know. It's not like a huge deal. It's just something I would like to see. Like the fact that they removed Tilted, I feel like was just a not a good idea. Even though the thing is too, I'm not even like a huge fan of Tilted. I just think it's so iconic. Like it feels weird. Like even in Chapter 2, it feels weird to not have Tilted in the game. It just does. It just doesn't feel right, you know? And I like if it's the only POI. Like I don't even want it to come back, but if there was a POI I'd want to come back in Chapter 3, that would be it, you know? Just Tilted. Of course, like I love Tomato Temple, I love Lazy Links. Of course, it would be amazing to have those back, but I don't know. I just feel like Tilted's so iconic. It just feels weird to not have it, you know? But yeah, overall, I just feel like Season X, by the time it got to that point, the map was kind of messed up. I didn't really like it anymore. Like, the map just was not great, in my opinion, by this point. But at least they changed a lot, and I feel like they just, for Chapter 3, they need to find a balance, because the reason that they didn't do a lot of changes in Chapter 2 is because they didn't want to have the same problem. They recognized that this was an issue. But I feel strongly that there's a way to do good map changes, but also not make the map feel like a complete mess. And yeah, I think they went a bit overboard. And it's the exact opposite problem of Chapter 2. But I'd rather have this than what happened in Chapter 2. So speaking of Chapter 2, let's move on. So, let's go on to Chapter 2, Season 1. So, yeah. Oh, actually, well, let me reflect on Chapter 1 real fast. Overall, I think Chapter 1 was good. I really liked it from the majority of it. The last, like, few seasons, in my opinion, like Season 8, 9, 10, were a bit meh. I feel like Season 8 could have been really fun for me if I just, like, kind of played it more. But Season 9 and 10, like, Season 9 was just not great, and then Season 10 was alright. But the map bothered me a lot. But overall, the gameplay stayed pretty fun consistently. Cosmetics were always great. Battle passes were pretty good for the most part. It's overall just a good time, and it provided for a lot of fun and a lot of interesting things, even if not everything landed for me. Just overall, a lot more interesting, a lot more unique. I love the unique POIs. I think the best part of like the chapter was like season 4, 5, and 6. I'd say was the best era. Maybe even season 7. I think mainly 4, 5, and 6 is like the best era for me. when it comes to Chapter 1. So yeah, I want to see seasons like that in Chapter 3. Moving on to Chapter 2. Chapter 2 Season 1 was really, really cool. It was really cool. But it just didn't do as much as I would have liked for it to do. Like, the map impressed me, and like I loved swimming, I loved fishing, but overall it didn't impress me too much, like gameplay wise. That just wasn't that. It felt like they went back to basics, which is nice, especially after all the chaos that had happened. I liked the map back then too. Like the map was great in season 1, when it was fresh. It lasted a little too long, which is weird. There was long stretches of the season that just felt really weird, that like they just didn't do anything. But there were also things that people forget about, like the Star Wars update, the winter event, the Halloween update, all really cool things as well. Some of my favorite POIs from this include Frenzy Farm. Sweaty Sands was like my main drop spot in the first season. All that kind of stuff. But yeah, overall, just not a lot to talk about for season 1. Again, much like season 1 of original Fortnite. It was kind of just like a basic start, but unlike the original season 1, they didn't add new items, and they didn't change things, and they didn't listen to the community as much, which made it not really feel like I feel like the whole point of this was to, like, what a lot of people expected is that this would feel like OG Fortnite again. I think a lot of people were expecting to go back to this and feel like OG Fortnite, and that didn't really happen. And I don't expect it to happen for Chapter 3. But I did for Chapter 2. I expected us to go back to this and feel like the old game, like the first few seasons I played, where it just felt fresh. It felt new. It felt fun. They were adding stuff like every few weeks they would add a new item, and they would add some new fun thing to mess around with. And that didn't really happen. It just kind of felt bland. And the fact that all the weapons were reused as well didn't help either. Like, no new weapons at the start. It's kind of disappointing. But the map was great, and overall I had a good time. Just didn't really meet my expectations. But overall, it was good. Like, I don't think it's a bad season, especially compared to the other seasons of Chapter 2. This is definitely a pretty good season compared to most of the other Chapter 2 seasons, in my opinion. Moving on. Chapter 2 Season 2, probably the weirdest season for me. Just honestly, I know like everyone's gonna disagree with me on this. Least favorite season that they've ever done. This season just completely, like, okay, let's start from the beginning. 5 brand new POIs, which is great. The problem is they're all on the outskirts of the map. Compared this to Season 2 of Chapter 1, where we got a bunch of new POIs, but they all kind of fleshed out areas of the map. Which, the main area of the map I think could use fleshing out during this time was the middle, because most of the POIs were already on the outskirts of the map. We got the agency in the middle, which is great. That's like the one main thing I wanted from Chapter 1, or Season 1 with Chapter 2, was that island needed a named POI, I feel like. So that was great. But there's a bunch of other spots on the map they could have put these POIs instead of on the outskirts. So that was my first main problem with it. My second main problem was the henchmen. Henchmen just weren't fun, and they still aren't really. But especially this season, they were broken. The shark, like everything, the rig, everything had henchmen. So I couldn't really land any new POIs because I would just get lasered by henchmen, and I just didn't really have a good time with the henchmen, Also, the mythics. The mythics weren't that fun, Every late game was pretty much impossible if you didn't have a mythic. You just got destroyed by a team with like a bunch of mythics. Sometimes you could make it work. Sometimes you could, clutch up and kill everyone with the mythics, or kill the people who had the mythics and get the mythics for yourself. That didn't really happen very often, just due to how powerful the mythics were. So yeah, at least from personal experience, the Mythics were a bit annoying to go up against, in my opinion. And then also just again, the game just felt very much still the same. It didn't really change enough for me to be too interested. There were some interesting items like crash pads that got added. Helicopters were a great addition to the game, in my opinion. And it's sad that they're gone now. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. This season just didn't do it for me. And it annoyed me more than, more than it really made the game more fun. It just kind of felt annoying. Like, this is definitely the most frustrating season I think I've ever played of this game. The Battle Pass was cool. A lot of cool things about it. But overall, just not a huge fan. Moving on to season 3. This is probably I want to say season 3 is like still my favorite season of the game. And I really do. But the more I think about it, like the more there's problems with it, I still love season 3 though. By far my favorite season in chapter 2. One of my favorite seasons, definitely my top 3 at least. I don't know if I could still say like it's my favorite ever, just like looking back on it. But it's still really good. I still love this season. And it's just like the most nostalgic to me, it's the best feeling season of chapter 2 for sure. It's the one that feels most like a chapter 1 season. In fact, in terms of map changes, it goes above and beyond anything chapter 1 could have ever accomplished. Like, this showed off the strengths that chapter 2 had, They could do crazy map changes like this. They could flood things, You could swim. They had the whole water stuff to their advantage. Fishing was great this season. All the strengths of chapter 2 were just like made so clear. But all the weaknesses were also amplified because you had Marauders, which showed off how terrible AI it was. You still had the Mythics, which were kind of annoying, but a lot more balanced this season for sure. So I didn't mind the Mythics as much this season, but still not great. The lack of interesting updates and map changes throughout the season. But I think the launch was great. Them adding cars was amazing. It's just, again, it's bogged down by a bunch of chapter 2 issues, but the chapter 2 things, like the things that make chapter 2 so good, shine the most throughout the season. It's just the great, like, the amazing amount of, like, I feel like this showed off the potential of chapter 2 in a way that not really any of the other seasons did. So it's just disappointing to me that we never got another season like this. And I think if more seasons were like season 3, they would have, like, chapter 2 as a whole just would have been a lot better. I feel like this is like the prime example of how to do a good chapter 2 season. And while I still have problems with it, those are mostly linked to chapter 2 itself and not the season specifically. But yeah, that's why I can't really call this my favorite season as much as I'd like to, but my favorite chapter 2 season, definitely, for sure. 100%. And still one of my favorite seasons just in general. Just lots of cool little mini POIs you can go to, like you had a cool storage area. A lot of the existing POIs felt completely different because they were like submerged, and then some of them had like the floating areas, which is awesome. The Fortilla was great, Rickety Rig was great, Catty Corner still an amazing inclusion. Just awesome stuff all around. And also, if you guys want to listen to me talk about these seasons even more, I did make a ranking video of chapter 2. Season 4, superpower mythics were annoying, not a lot of map changes, and that's about all I remember from the season. Halloween update was good, cosmetics were great. I didn't mind that it was Marvel themed. I thought that was cool. I thought a lot of the skins were great. I just didn't like how the mythics were handled. I didn't like how Stark Industries was handled, with it being a henchman POI. I didn't like how they got rid of a bunch of stuff from Season 3, like the Fortilla, and even Season 2. Stuff didn't return. Like, the yacht just went away. Grotto's still not back. But at least they still have the agency, or whatever it became, the authority. So yeah, I don't know. Season 4 just it wasn't great in my opinion. It felt like a regression. It felt like we went back a step again. Which is kind of unfortunate in my opinion. And then season 5 was good, but it's a lot of missed potential. You know, the map changes were great. I didn't like Colossal Coliseum really, but Salty Towers, you know, I feel like this was like a good celebration of like old Fortnite, which is weird that they did that, but it was kind of cool. Like, you got Flush Factory back, you got the Durburger back, you got the Tomato Head back, which is amazing. Again, iconic things of Fortnite are all being represented. Tilted Towers, Durburger, Tomato Head, like, those are key things for me for some reason. I don't know why I'm so fixated on that, but I like that. I like having the Durburger on the map. I like having the Tomato Head on the map. I like having Tilted in some way represented. It's just, it feels good. It makes the game feel more like Fortnite to me. It's just, that's kind of what I associate with it. So I like that. 0 Point was cool. The whole like 0 Point area kind of felt like Leaky Lake. It was an interesting playstyle. I like that a lot. Little POIs around, like the Butter Barn. You even had like a Dusty Depot building. Just cool stuff like that, you know? I like that a lot. I like this map. This is a great map. A lot of people point this and say it's the best map of this chapter, which I could see. I could definitely see that. Me personally, I like early Season 3 better, but this map was just great. In terms of stuff they added, it wasn't that great. I mean, lever action shotgun was awesome, but it was cool they started adding actual weapons, but overall, just not amazing. I wasn't a huge fan of most, like, not that I wasn't a huge fan of stuff, because, like, everything they added I liked. I just wish they did more with this season, and I wish these changes stayed. I kind of miss a lot of these changes. I miss Salty Towers, you know. I miss Butter Barn. I miss, like, I'm glad that the Tomato Head is still here. I'm glad that the Durburger is still here. I'm glad that Flush Factory is still here. But those are just tiny areas compared to, like, these big POIs, so yeah. So yeah, that was kind of the main problem with that. But overall, really good season. Definitely one of my favorites. In Chapter 2. Season 6. This was a good season in my opinion. I liked the map. I just wish they didn't reverse a bunch of stuff, but they gave us a bunch of new POIs, which is always fun. I liked how the autumn biome looked. I wasn't a huge fan of the spires, how they had like the spire henchmen there. But other than that, like, I think this was a good season. I think this is definitely one that you either love it or you hate it. Like, if you liked what they introduced and you like what they added, it just feels like a completely new, fresh game, and it's so much fun. But if you didn't like it, then, yeah, it's gonna be hard for you to enjoy much of what this season had to offer, because so much of it was revolved around the crafting and the bows. And if you didn't vibe with that, I could see how you could hate it. And I don't blame people for disliking it. Well, I don't blame people for disliking anything, but, you know, I could see how people would dislike this. But personally, I really liked it. I think it was really good. Season 6 overall, I think it was just a lot of fun. Yeah, overall, it was just really good. It was a really fun time. And, like, the Spire was kind of an underrated POI, in my opinion. I think it was really cool. Still waiting a lot for these prefabs and creative. Also, Colossal Crops was great. Such a good upgrade of Colossal Coliseum. Like, that's the kind of stuff I love to see, because you could still tell that Colossal Coliseum was there before, but they just upgraded it, and it was such a cool spot, you know? Bony Burbs, I feel like, was a downgrade of Salty Towers, which is kind of a shame, but hey, I just wish they changed different POIs instead of the same ones. And, yeah, I was worried about that for Season 7, so what they did instead was they changed none of them. Well, they changed Corny, and they just got rid of the Spire. And they added IO bases. And that was about it. And if you want to hear my thoughts on Season 7, then you can go watch my Season 7 review video, because I don't feel like being flamed in the comments for this podcast. Because, yeah, I did not like Season 7. So we'll move on from that, because I've already talked about that enough. And we'll go on to Season 8, which is the current season, which I think is pretty much like the same feelings for Season 10 of Chapter 1. It's alright. I'm fine with it. Like, I think it's okay. I don't really like the map anymore. And mechs annoy me. And that's about it. It's pretty much my exact same thoughts on Chapter 1, Season 10. Like, it's alright. But I just don't like the map. And I don't like the mechs. That's about it. That's pretty much it for Season 8. So, yeah, I wish Adrawls was here, because I feel like we could have had a lot more in-depth conversation about this, especially with Chapter 2. I feel like I was repeating myself a lot from my ranking video. So yeah, it would have been nice to have Adrawls here. Unfortunately, like I would re-record this with him, but I don't have the time to like. I can't do this any longer because I have to get it up on Monday. So unfortunately, we can't do that. But overall, as you could probably tell, I think Chapter 1 was just better. I think it just had better map changes overall. Again, the last 3 seasons kind of made the map kind of rough for me, but I feel like it had potential, and there was a. I'd rather have that than have the map be boring. I'd rather have it be cluttered than have it be boring. Uh, Overall, Chapter 1 had less annoying stuff in it. It had no henchmen, it didn't have annoying mythics, and a lot of seasons. Of course, not all mythics were annoying, but the majority of them were, especially in Season 4 and Season 2. It didn't have, like, weird random gaps of time where Fortnite just didn't update the game for whatever reason. It didn't really have a lack of content really at all, you know? They always updated pretty consistently. And in terms of negatives, it's just, again, the map got a bit cluttered at the end. They made some weird decisions with the loot pool sometimes. But I don't know. I just think overall it was better. I ain't even talking about like events and stuff. Like events, even in Chapter 1, I think for the majority were better. Because Chapter 2, well, they've been like making them like bigger. They just don't have as much impact on me for like, especially because the storyline's just so weird and a lot of the events just, I don't know, they don't have as much impact for me anymore as they did in Chapter 1. And the thing about the Chapter 1 answer is I feel like people say they like Chapter 1 more, and a lot of people automatically assume it's because of nostalgia. But I feel like that's not really a fair way to look at things. I think that people can still enjoy old stuff better without it being based on nostalgia. And while I do have nostalgia for Chapter 1, I can confidently say that even without any bias whatsoever, I still think Chapter 1 is better. And I genuinely don't think any nostalgia is involved in that decision. I just simply think that it was handled better. I simply think that it was just a more fun game during that time. Now, there are some seasons that I would say were misses, like Season 9 of Chapter 1 and even Season 8 for some of it. Like, for me personally. But I still genuinely had a consistently more enjoyable experience during Chapter 1 than I have had in Chapter 2. Now, again, I'm not saying Chapter 2 is terrible either. I'm not, like, hating on Chapter 2. But overall, I just think Chapter 1 has been better. I just do. And I could commonly say it's not nostalgia. I don't think it's nostalgia at all. I think it's just me looking at it, talking about every season. Even, like, because, like, I don't know. I just really enjoyed Chapter 1 a lot more. And there were less things about it that bothered me. And here's hoping that Chapter 3 kind of combines the best of both worlds, because there are still great things about Chapter 2, like the water, the fishing, all the new vehicles they added. Save for a few, like I wasn't a huge fan of the UFOs, but like helicopters, boats, cars, all good things, you know? A lot of the whole map at the start was amazing. It's just it stayed the same for too long. You know, I'd argue that the Chapter 2 map in Season 1 was better than the Chapter 1 map in Season 1. But as the Chapter 1 map continued, it quickly became better than Chapter 2. So yeah, again, I think it's Chapter 1 for me. But I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. I know Adrawls thinks Chapter 2 was better, and I would love to have a conversation about that to like kind of debate it here. But if, unfortunately his internet crashed and he is not able to return. So yeah, that's unfortunate. But this is still a really fun podcast to record. Again, I thank you, Adrawls, for giving me the idea to do this. And yeah, I think this was just a great time, and I feel bad that Adrawls wasn't able to be on, but hopefully I can get him on another episode soon. So yeah, I'll see you guys in the next episode of the Bendominator podcast. It's going to be an interesting one. There's going to be downtime, and we're just going to be waiting for Chapter 3. So I'll see you guys next week when we are all waiting for Chapter 3. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and goodbye.